And I'm going to go live on Facebook, and we'll give people a few more minutes to join us. So for everybody who's joining us, we're just going to wait a few more minutes for all the registered participants to get logged on, and we will invite you to sit back and you'll hear a great presentation from Alexa Pavliuc. You're also going to have a chance to ask questions through our chat Zoom functions, or the Q&A function. So at the bottom of your screen, there is a little icon that says Q&A, and you can type in your questions or comments there. We will allow you to do that sort of throughout the webinar. There's a bit of a presentation, and we'll try to keep an eye on those if you have something that needs to be further explained or a comment to go back to. I'm just setting us up on UCC's Facebook Live page, which I think is working right now.
Gorgeous.
If you are watching on Facebook, we will try to watch some of the comments, but it's going to be more difficult. So we're going to focus on those folks who are registered in the Zoom webinar chat. Okay, so we have more than a dozen people that have joined us already, and we'll have more signing in. Again, welcome to UCC's webinar for today, which is August 27th. I have to remind myself, which webinar is it today? Today's our webinar on social media and disinformation, and we're very lucky to have Alexa Pavliuc join us again. She did a webinar earlier this summer, and we got great feedback on that, and have asked her to return due to popular demand. She's about a week away from heading back to the UK to continue her studies. But Alexa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your knowledge about this issue, where it comes from?
Of course, absolutely. So let me just share my screen first to get us going. And if you can confirm with me that there we are, we're happy.
I can absolutely see it, and our panelists can see it, and it's all good.
Okay, lovely. That is perfect. And let me just set myself up. Okay, very good. So yes, my name is Alexa. I am a Plastunka from Toronto, but I've been living in the UK for the last 2 years. I just completed a Master of Science in Data Science in the UK, and I'm about to, thank you very much. And I'm about to embark on a new journey, starting a PhD studying social data science at the University of Oxford, also in the UK. So there I'll be studying disinformation and network analysis, which the disinformation hat was a bit more what I spoke about in the past. But today I'm going to put on my data science hat a little bit more and talk about not just online disinformation, but also your social media. So I'm going to walk us through today something called the Facebook newsfeed algorithm, how it works and how it influences the posts that you see on Facebook when you enter. Of course, we all go there to connect with friends, family, and our community, and with our news. But there's a lot that goes into it that I'm very excited to speak about today and explain how you can sort of take a little bit of control over what you see on Facebook as well. I also just want to underscore that this is under my umbrella of research, but I have consulted other sources that I trust to put together this for you to make it as interesting and informative as possible.
Excellent. Thank you, Alexa. So we're going to have your presentation now. Again, if folks are just joining us, if they've registered through Zoom, there's a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. You can type in a question as we go if there's something that Alexa presents on that you'd like to hear about further, or something that wasn't clear. And we'll try to get to those by the end of the presentation. And then at the end as well, we'll have some time for any questions as well. I will try to keep an eye on Facebook in terms of what people might be commenting on there, but it'll be a little bit more difficult. So again, we will try to do our best. So with no further ado, Alexa, over to you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so yes, the Facebook newsfeed algorithm. So if you're watching this presentation today, you either have Facebook or are very curious about Facebook. If you chose to come and join us today, you probably use Facebook to connect with friends and family, stay informed on the news, and even share and discuss newsworthy events with your friends, family, and your larger community, whether that's the Ukrainian Canadian community or, of course, any other communities that we're part of on Facebook. When you open Facebook to explore what your friends have been up to, and to see what the latest news is, you probably enter something called the news feed. That's where you scroll down and see posts from your community. And to you, it's kind of like a digital newspaper that, that you peruse by scrolling down on your phone or on your computer to receive and to interact with all of those updates. So that's what you see from the outside. Those updates, you scroll down and you sort of feel like you're a little bit more informed in that endless scroll of posts that are delivered, really with no questions asked. But in fact, the posts that you're served and the order that they're in are the result of an incredibly complicated process that has been learning from your preferences since you joined Facebook. And it shows you posts from your friends, from community members, and news sources that it believes that you will have a reaction to, whether that's a like, a dislike, a comment, a read, even just a view without any kind of overt reaction, or if they're lucky, a share. So today, again, is all about your social media. The first thing we're going to talk about is the key elements that go in, that make articles on Facebook go viral, or what really brings things to the top of your social media newsfeed, and again, therefore makes them more popular. We're then going to look at a step-by-step example on how an article, one that I've kind of made up for the purposes of today, can go viral. We'll then have some comments from Ihor Michalczyszyn, who just introduced me, which I very much appreciated. And finally, we'll have some recommendations on how to help control the virality of articles. So to start us off, I just want to do a couple of definitions just to make sure that we're on the same page. So social media, we talk about it, it's a very broad term that of course we probably hear every day at this point. But what it really is websites and apps that both enable connections between friends and communities and also serve us targeted advertisement. It's their business model, that's simply what it is. A news feed in Facebook, for Facebook in particular, is that web page that serves you social media posts and content from your friends, from your communities, and also, of course, from advertisers. An algorithm sounds like a very complicated and scary word, but really all it is a set of rules that a computer is trained to follow in order to arrive at an outcome, really just a set of rules. In the context of the Facebook newsfeed algorithm, which is what we'll be discussing, those rules are trained on how we act on social media, the things we view, the things we react to. And the outcome dictates what we then see in the future and what gets shown to more and more people when they go onto their news feed without asking for any certain content. It's what they get with no questions asked. And then finally, the term viral. Pretty common term right now for a lot of reasons, but in terms of social media, for a post to go viral, such as a photo, maybe a video, or a piece of news, or any other type of content. Similarly to epidemiological terms, it means that the wider public is exposed to the piece of content beyond the target audience it was initially sent to. So if maybe recently you've seen a certain piece of content multiple times on social media, or maybe on different websites, you've talked to friends about it, things like that, it probably means that you're talking about a certain piece of content that has gone viral and become very popular. So the Facebook newsfeed algorithm is really the thing that we're talking about today and learning about, and how it affects the posts that we see on social media and how we can take a little bit of control in the future. To start us off with an example, I'm going to show you here on the left really what I tend to see on my Facebook newsfeed. So when I go onto Facebook just to see what's going on, I typically see things from Help Us Help, the Ukrainian charity helping orphans in Ukraine. I also tend to see things about a lot of advertisements for free online introductions to coding that you see on the bottom left of my screen, which at this point is a little bit outdated as I actually teach coding part-time, so that's a bit of an outdated recommendation, but all's well that ends well. And then also I follow CBC, so I tend to get a lot of news from them, particularly at the very top of my newsfeed. So us members of the Ukrainian and the Canadian community, maybe you see similar things to me, and of course, maybe you don't. So maybe
I just
think
shared an
oh, yeah?
video on the Ukrainian community in Kenora, Saskatchewan that came up from CBC Saskatchewan. So you can check that out on our Facebook.
Very interesting, yes. And I'm sure lots of us have been seeing all of the charitable efforts that Help Us Help has been speaking about recently. And of course, the introductions to coding that I'm getting, I'm sure not too many others of you get, but different communities I'm a
And
part of
lots of
definitely.
advertising on where to buy masks.
I've actually not seen that too often. Maybe it's because I'm just hiding at home, working remotely. So the elements that cause you and I to see what we see on our news feeds, simply put, could be the five that you see here on the right. Before I explain them, I just want to underscore that different statistics say that there's actually 10,000 factors or elements that go into what you see on the Facebook newsfeed. And other statistics say that there are even 100,000 tiny levers that get pulled and maneuvered in order to show you something like what you see on the left of my screen. So what I'm doing today is really breaking that down, those 10,000, 100,000 little levers that get turned in the algorithm to give you a news feed, into these 5 basic ones here. So let us just take a moment to go through them and think about them a little bit more deeply. So the first one is your interest in a person or a page that is doing the posting. So if the page is popular among, So this is really personal to all of our accounts, and Facebook stores information about, again, what we view, what we like, and particularly what we react to, because it wants to show us things we're interested in so that we stay on the platform longer and effectively look at more ads between posts, of course. The second element to newsfeed visibility is the popularity of the person or the page. So this is kind of one step removed from what I'm interested in from Help Us or from General Assembly Introduction to Coding. If something is generally popular, then it's going to be shared with more people and it's going to be served to them higher up on their newsfeed when they go on to Facebook. So more popular source is going to be shown higher up. And a thing that I want to remind us all of as well is that we're not viewing for just ourselves anymore. If I'm interested in a person or a page and I see their posts and I tend to react to them, Facebook will then show that to more of my friends, because the Facebook algorithm has learned that if I react to it, people similar to me who are my friends will also react to it. Another thing about these first two, your interest in the person page, the popularity of the person or the page, this has nothing to do with the post itself. So I'm interested in seeing Help Us content. Help Us Help on Facebook is quite popular. Therefore, I'll see almost anything that they post, regardless of the content. So let's move into the content a little bit. The third element is the post's performance itself. If a post, of course, gets a lot of likes, particularly a lot of comments, because that's even more engaging, you had to think, you had to write things, then more people are going to see that post near the top of their news feed. Again, all Facebook is aiming for here is more engagement and therefore more advertising revenue. So if a post is popular and has lots of engagement, whether it's positive or whether it's negative, it's going to be shown to more people. The fourth element we have is the type of content, whether it's a link, a video, or a photo. Facebook tends to favor videos, particularly ones that are posted directly to Facebook rather than like a YouTube video or another type of embedded video. But anything multimedia tends to be a little bit more preferred by the Facebook newsfeed algorithm than just a text post. So if I post an article, it's going to be a little bit more popular than if I had just posted maybe a caption about the content of the article. And finally, the fifth element, which also kind of makes sense intuitively, is the recency of the post. Of course, if something was posted very recently and it starts to gain high performance almost immediately, and it's a link, video, or photo, and it's from somebody I'm interested in, it's definitely going to be pushed to the top of the news feeds of many people in my community. So this kind of secret sauce, not so secret sauce, because some researchers have looked into it and sort of deduced that these are a lot of the main elements that go into the Facebook newsfeed algorithm. These are the things that go into it. And these are the things we're now going to try to break down and learn about with an example. Again, I just want to underscore that we're not only viewing for ourselves. It's not like Facebook is a private and digital newspaper that I read only for myself. What I read more, maybe I'm served more of. What I read more, what I react to more, will be served to more people, potentially outside of my community as well, that in the very deep, dark sort of alleys of Facebook's algorithms, Facebook decides I'm similar to a certain person, it will share with them things that I've reacted to, and vice versa. So, to illustrate how an article can go viral on Facebook using the elements, I'm going to go through a completely fake example of a post that maybe our Ukrainian community wouldn't really want to have at the top of everybody's news feed. So the title of the very fake, completely fake post that I made up is this restaurant review called The Worst Dining Experience in Toronto, posted by Toronto Life. I apologize for using their website. I just kind of decided it was a good one to use. Worst dining experience in Toronto. And let's imagine that the takeaways of this author who's kind of putting down this restaurant, this Ukrainian restaurant, is that our food, our service, and our prices are terrible, which we all know would be untrue. So we're going to take this example and we're going to go through those 5 elements and learn about what actions on Facebook, whether they're direct, such as reactions, or indirect, such as, of course, just generally interest in a page in Toronto Life anyway, go into bringing an article like this that we probably don't want going viral to potentially go viral and be seen by not only our Ukrainian community, but maybe people from work who we're friends with, or people from our other communities who don't know that Ukrainian food is so amazing and so well priced, so they may kind of get a bad taste in their mouths from this piece of, let's say, fake news. So this is the article on the website. And let's just say that this is how the article would look if I shared it on Facebook. It, of course, looks like many other things that we see on our Facebook news feeds. We have the link, we have some reactions at the bottom, we have myself who shared it, and we have a date. But let's again now take a look at how the newsfeed algorithm would take this article and its reactions and dictate how much members of our own community and how much members outside of our community may potentially see it. So we're going to go through those 5 elements again now and see how a combination of those elements can contribute to the virality of an article like this. So that first element that we talked about is your interest in the person or the page. And by the way, on the left here, I have a thermometer that I'm using to sort of indicate the growing potential of virality on Facebook based on those elements that I'm about to explain and have already outlined. The order that I'm explaining them in is not at all, it's not ordered. It's just any combination of these elements that you can already see in light gray on the right of your screen is what could push an article to the top of the news feeds of more and more people. So it's not ordered, but I am using the thermometer as we go along to show that kind of the temperature is rising as we have more of these elements coming together. So again, the first one is your interest in the person or page. Toronto Life wrote our very fake, for anyone joining in, very fake article, and I'm the one who shared it in this example. So if someone in my community, has personally reacted to posts either from Toronto Life or maybe from myself that I've posted on Facebook, because of your interest in me and or Toronto Life, you're more likely to see this at the top of your newsfeed. The second element that we're thinking about that's kind of similar but is quite different is the popularity of the person or page itself. So again, it kind of goes a step beyond that first one about your personal interest in me. It's about my general popularity on Facebook and how many reactions how many reactions Toronto Life generally gets on Facebook. So if I tend to get a lot of reactions, this will be put on the top of your news feed, even if you've not reacted to my stuff before or to Toronto Life's stuff before, because again, all Facebook is trying to do is find things that are sticky and get people to stay on Facebook longer. So again, one more thing is that these first two elements have nothing to do with the content of the article itself. This is simply about kind of the surrounding environment of the article, which is the news source that posted it, and myself who shared it. Even if I shared a caption saying that I disagreed with the article, if it started getting reactions and a bit more traction, Facebook may then bring the article up on other people's news feeds if it was shared by somebody else that maybe didn't have that rebuttal that I shared with it, for example. So now we're going to move into content-specific elements. The next one, again, is the post's performance. And this is, of course, very particular to this post itself. As you can see, my fictitious post has garnered a lot of reactions over the last fictitious week since August 21st. 515 reactions to be specific and 51 comments. This slew of comments is training the newsfeed algorithm to understand and learn that this article itself is interesting to people. It's sticky. It's getting people involved on Facebook and getting them involved in conversation, whether those 51 comments are positive or negative. Again, I mentioned that there's between 10,000 and 100,000 different elements that really do go into the algorithm. That could, for example, be the content of the comments themselves. It does get, of course, much more specific when we get into the nitty-gritty. But overall, Facebook loves seeing people commenting on posts. Therefore, the Facebook newsfeed algorithm will push my post and ones like it about the article up to the top of my neighbor's newsfeed, my colleague's newsfeed, etc. The fourth one, as we move on, is the type of content itself. So this is an article that I shared, and as I mentioned before, the Facebook newsfeed algorithm loves multimedia content, whether it's articles, particularly videos or photos, over just simple text posts that may be posted onto Facebook. So if I'm posting something that's more multimedia, like a link, then it's more likely to be shared with lots of people at the top of their news feeds. And the very final one that also really makes a lot of sense intuitively, I would say, is the recency of the post. So with this very fake post being from August 21st, about a week ago, it's probably starting to slow down on being showed to a lot of people at the top of their news feeds. But if my post started to gain tractions immediately on the 21st, then that combination of post performance and recency of the post would probably have brought this itself up to the top of a lot of people's news feeds, not just Ukrainians, but of course also other people within my network and within the different communities that I am a part of. So there you have it, the 5 sort of key elements, the perfect storm of how a story that the Ukrainian Canadian community may not want appearing at the top of a lot of people's news feeds could do exactly just that. And again, you can see the very high temperature on our thermometer when we have that perfect storm of all of those elements, or a large number of them, coming together. Again, the key takeaway here is that it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with the article. If the elements are satisfying the newsfeed algorithm, then it's going to be shown to a lot more people, potentially without the context of disagreements and debates in the comments section, or maybe me posting a caption with this article saying, I absolutely disagree, I was there last week and the restaurant was incredible. That doesn't matter. If it's getting engagement, again, Facebook is of course actually an advertisement service more than it is something that's trying to connect us all, according to a business model that of course private companies have to follow. If people are watching, people are engaging, people are reacting, people are just simply viewing, they get more advertising revenue and can therefore, of course, stay afloat and show things to our broader communities. And what it means is that it's not really a great idea to share an article that we disagree with in an attempt to debunk it. So I'd like to switch over now to a few comments from Ihor Mikhalchishin, and then I'll provide a couple of recommendations on how to deal with articles that we disagree with on Facebook and then maybe we consider to be untrue in order to not add fuel to the viral fire.
Thanks, Alexa. And actually, I just saw an example this morning of somebody who was tweeting something from an unreliable source in an effort to sort of say, hey, look, they're talking about me in this article, and it's sort of like, ooh, I thought of your presentation. So I think this you've explained it really in an interesting, very easy to understand way. It's been an interesting year and season now with all sorts of articles popping up of interest. And I think that, myself personally, I think many of us, who use social media don't take the time to think about and understand why we're seeing things, why we're not. I certainly, when I start seeing ads for things I recently looked on, cross-country skis, masks, whatever, popping up on my social media feed, I start to think, how much does this algorithm know about me, and how is it watching my behavior? So again, I think that this is also not about, this is about sort of explaining how, to some degree, how social media works and why certain things get reach further and certain things don't. Because we certainly at UCC hear a lot from folks about, certain sometimes great articles don't get the volume, and then articles that are concerning or sometimes outright fake sort of do get promoted. Sometimes there's a paid and unpaid element as well, and I know that various companies are trying to police that a little bit more, but I wanted to say two things about disinformation. First, UCC is actually at the national level working with the coalition, the Canadian Coalition to Stop Online Hate and Disinformation, which we work with other ethnocultural communities and other religious communities in Canada. There's a coalition of about 40 community groups, and so we've been working with the Department of Justice, the Minister of Justice, to present everything from a new modern definition of online hate to having Canada more seriously consider the role of state actors in spreading disinformation, and in telecommunications, and expanding telecommunications to be more about online as well. So I think from a policy perspective, I mean, there's some interesting policy proposals that we have on our website, ucc.ca, if people want to read more about that and sort of what we're doing about the issue sort of on a proactive basis. There's that element of it. And I think the second element of it, a lot of the time we're all, I get a lot of this, people share stories with me. Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? Whether it's fake, whether it's real, you see something, you send it. And I'm as guilty of that as anybody else, that I see a headline, I don't necessarily even read the story, and you sort of see sensational headlines and you go, oh my God, have you seen this? Has so-and-so seen this? So I think that, all of us as consumers of media need to be more careful about that. What's the source website you talked about on your previous webinar, and actually we have that up on our YouTube channel for people to review. So sort of consider the source and the veracity, sort of this, but I think it's also, how do we respond? I think in this, in the days when it would be a newspaper would come out, and then there might be some kind of an article that was controversial, then people would write a letter to the editor, a couple of days later, and then it would, there would be a response or correction, etc. In this day and age, when we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, and other media, that's just not the way it goes, right? We've all seen stories where, a story comes out, there's, hundreds of comments, some real, some could be, bots, et cetera, very quickly. This kind of rises depending on the way that people sort of pitch it and market it, really. And so, that era of kind of quiet, calm, writing letters to the editor and kind of a thoughtful responses, sort of is reduced to minutes and seconds and hours. And, there's no way to shut it down. Often people sort of say, oh, if only, we could shut down this kind of, websites that spew hateful things, or, that are spinning out misinformation in terms of their headlines, or, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's where we sort of get to the role of government, governments across the world, government in Canada. There are ways to try to police, for governments to sort of set up rules and boundaries for tech and broadcast media. And so, but it is our role at the end of the day for the Ukrainian Congress and other organizations to monitor the media. We do want to, and we do keep track of stories that are concerning, whether they're fake information about Ukraine in terms of, the war that Russia's waging, and there's lots and lots of data about that kind of content. In Canada, we've seen sort of attacks on the Ukrainian community in terms of individuals, organizations, etc., where sometimes Canadian sources, sometimes foreign sources will spin or totally do something that we would consider very disreputable. So but there's no way to shut it off, right? It lives on the internet, it lives on social media. So we do our best to respond effectively where we can, but part of the other thing is explaining to people and on a broad basis with our coalition partners about sort of the way we can use social media more responsibly. No one's going to be shutting down Facebook and Twitter. It's the way the world is going in terms of communication, and there's lots of excellent ways we can use it, and our community uses it, to go and rally in terms of causes we like and gather and meet each other. But there's also sort of the darker side, which is the way that things can get spun out of control, and sensationalism, and really getting more eyes on something in a sensational way that may not be as accurate as it should be is a real danger. So that's kind of what I wanted to sort of talk about from the UCC's perspective. And again, we do value all the input that we get from our community, when they do alert us to stories. So it's not, the issue isn't that we want to stop. We certainly don't want to stop hearing from people. But I think the issue is sort of, if we all sort of, are we all unintentionally fueling, collectively sometimes fueling some of these things and making it worse instead of making it, addressing it in a better way. So with that, again, we're going to allow people to send in some comments to Q&A at the bottom of your screen. I think, Alexa, you have a couple more slides to go?
Yes, just one more in a Q&A slide, okay. So we're almost there. Great. Thank you so much, Ihor, for your comments. And yes, of course, just before I get to my recommendations, definitely, of course, we have to stay in contact with our community organizations that make us stronger together. So definitely really appreciate, Ihor, you having me today and being able to give you this presentation, as well as a couple of small recommendations on how to sort of take control of our information space on social media. So the first of three is that, first recommendation, of course, is don't share an original article when you disagree with it. So what I probably should have done if I disagreed with that, that restaurant very fake restaurant article, I wouldn't share it, but I would find a positive review online, or maybe post my own photograph from when I was at the restaurant last week saying there was an article about how terrible this restaurant is. Trust me, it's amazing. Everybody should go there. Here's their website and their opening hours, etc. Make that multimedia aspect that the Facebook algorithm loves work for you. Have that be, again, the website of the restaurant, or again, that image of the food that you ate there, for example. It's better, again, to share a rebuttal, whether it's the restaurant example of my own photos, or a UCC drafted letter potentially, or maybe information about how to write a letter to an editor for a certain news source, if that's where the article that we consider all to be fake or untrue or untruthful or a bit too skewed in a certain direction. So again, that multimedia aspect, don't share the original article because it could be shared out of proportion, and again, to our non-Ukrainian communities, but share your rebuttal that you do agree with and are happy to see be recommended more by the algorithm. The second one, since battles aren't typically won on social media, and particularly not in the comment section of Facebook posts, I'm sure there's no famous battle of 2018 when there was some big argument by some trolls or some people who disagree on a Facebook post where a person actually won. So remember that and try to take things off of social media a little bit. Call or message people that you disagree with. Of course, also send letters to editors, reach out to the UCC with any concerns that you have so that they could take a strategic approach to combating the issue. And of course, also reach out to your politicians if that works within the context, of course, because there's different things that we could disagree with and different ways to approach the issue. And finally, if you're not sure about an article that you see on Facebook, double check the information before you share it. And again, research opposing viewpoints to see if there's something that you're missing there or that is missing from the article. Never share anything that you're unsure about. Or that you disagree with kind of with that first one, as the newsfeed algorithm will take that article potentially out of context and run with it and promote it to more people, because it's simply doing what it's designed to do. And if we work together and continue to keep our community on social media a positive and credible place, that's the goal that we're aiming for, and that's what we can achieve together. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm very happy to answer any questions now.
Excellent. Thank you, Alexa. And again, I want to point out tonight was sort of a special perspective sort of on social media, more about Facebook. Alexa did an excellent job earlier this summer. I can't remember the specific date, but the webinar is up there where you get into your data science hat, and there's some excellent, an excellent presentation well worth everybody's time to review about, you know, the study of this kind of stuff, and how you know, at least we believe in our perspective that, and it's been talked about many times, there's many state-sponsored actors for this. There's artificial intelligence bots elements to this, as well as just people who have who are mean and have agendas and would like to sensationalize and polarize people. So all of the above are at play in the social media environment, and especially now with COVID-19. There's certainly been a lot of attention paid on, you know, the accuracy of claims of, you know, various health remedies or, you know, kind of solutions or data as well. So I think it's caused all of us to, I know I've had to message a couple of friends and said, like, I don't, you know, that post you put up, I don't know that there is a cure for COVID. Maybe that's not the best thing to be sharing. And you know, it's all about the context in which we sort of have those conversations as well, that we're not trying to embarrass one another, but we're trying to sort of ensure that generally people are accurate and safe and
getting other viewpoints from the other side as well.
Yeah, no, this is not about shutting down viewpoints. This is about sort of the understanding the mechanics. I think really I imagine it sort of as, you know, there's this clean wall that we see on our screen, but behind it, as you said, there's 10,000 gears and levers that are manipulating and choosing and selecting really sort of what we see and from whom. And I think that we're all better consumers of the technology, you know, for having at least if not understanding the details of that, but at least understanding that there is a process that sort of determines what we see and what we don't see, and, you know, and that how we contribute and are part of it, really, as you said, and our actions are all part of the end piece. So just one of the comments in our questions that was thanking us for the information, and so we are ironically and not ironically, I guess, we are live on Facebook on UC. And we will be posting this to our YouTube. Yeah. Again, part of the way we use social media is to reach people positively and in an open and clear dialogue. So we're here, we're talking, and we'll be sharing this information later. Alexa, do you want to talk about just briefly about sort of videos? Because, you know, there's different kinds, you know, there's newspaper posts, there's photographs. Videos are something that seem to be going viral a lot. Certainly on my feed, I get, you know, I think I don't know who's seen this whale in Newfoundland video in the last.
I saw that on the TV news, actually.
Yeah, I've seen it like 100 times in the last 2 days on my Instagram and my Facebook posts. You know, and I'm not searching travels in Newfoundland, whales, et cetera, but it's pushing it out, I think, because of the number of people that are seeing it and sharing it, et cetera. So can you talk about sort of the way that videos versus, is there a difference with video versus other kind of content?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, so from a little bit of the reading I was doing on the newsfeed algorithm in general, is that video is really trying to be pushed as something that engages with people a lot. Because if you start watching a video, if it's quite a good one that's going to end up going viral, you'll probably stay on for a little bit longer. And then Facebook actually switches you to a video viewing platform if you do it on your phone.
Yeah, I've noticed that,
Yeah, and then that's just a new news feed of videos that it's showing you. So I know that sounds a bit complicated, but 10,000 levers that shows you the next thing as you scroll down is really complicated.
Well, frankly, so, I've had the I've had the situation now with a new phone and reinstalling these things that it will play videos automatically and then go to the next video automatically,
Yeah.
you know, so, and without even me
Yeah.
having any control of it. So
Yep. Definitely. It's a private platform that can
yeah.
make those decisions for you since you've decided to log on.
A question on Facebook, is sharing a link through Messenger
Okay.
messaging services have the same effect as sharing it through your, you know, on your newsfeed timeline?
Definitely. So that's a really interesting question. And that really kind of shows the interplay between private conversation on Facebook and, of course, public conversation on Facebook. I've not looked into the literature, though I'd be really interested to learn more about whether private messages are used. So I don't want to say yes or no, because unfortunately, I honestly don't know the answer. But the safe bet is that if you're sharing something online, you never know if you'll accidentally post it publicly when you're trying to post it privately, something like that. Always just be careful with what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with.
And I think the other point to remember, I mean, again, so, you know, when UCC shares something, we get data on sort of who likes it, who shares it, who's viewing it, et cetera. So that helps us kind of make decisions. But from a commercial perspective, that, you know, newspapers and websites are commercial enterprises. And so they're trying, as you said, Facebook is an advertising portal. So they're trying to drive sales and they want to see how many people have seen something. So I think that, you know, we have to remember this is our role as consumers as well in this, and it's that there is that element of it. It's not just the pop-up ads, that sometimes the articles are meant to really drive the sale of ads and to get eyes on something. I've certainly, you know, mistakenly or whatever hit the, you know, there's a headline or something that opens and it takes you to something that's just a, you know, not actually an article, but a series of pop-up ads on something.
Definitely. Or you see an image on your news feed and you think it's a photo that you're clicking on, but it's actually a link that kind of just didn't look as much like a link as they typically do. And then it takes you outside of Facebook to something else that may be collecting
There's a
data
lot
on
of
you.
clever people trying to use the technology, you know, for their purposes, but we're also, you know, glad to have you, Alexa, and others, many others who are clever and explaining it to us and having us sort of use it with open eyes and for good purposes as well. So I think I don't see any other questions on Facebook or on our Q&A. So I think with that, we will wrap up at about 8:40. And again, thank you, Duja Diakuyu. We wish you well in your further studies, and we hope to be in touch as you continue your research into this fascinating topic to keep us posted, and we'll watch for your next directions in your research.
Of course. Thank you so much. Look forward to being back sometime soon.
Okay, take care.